Okay, we got a special show today here. Today, we've got Ryan Wold, Kevin Healy with us here today. These guys are the winners of the sCrypt Hackathon from San Francisco that we had that was a couple months back, starting in March. And we're going to talk about the hackathon, about their project, learn more about who these guys are, just to have their story, and then also, ask a little bit more about Kevin about what the purpose of Bitcoin is, some of the talks that he's had, and how we can utilize it specifically with sCrypt tools, in simple terms, So how you guys doing? Thank you for coming.
Doing good. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Gavin.
So why don't we start with you, Kevin? Tell us, I know you've got a great YouTube channel, which people should check out. But who are you a little bit? What's your story?
Well, yeah, I was an iOS developer back from I think the peak of it was like 2014, 2015, was when I was really doing the apps. So I got interested in Bitcoin. I had heard about it in 2013, but then in 2015 is when I really started taking it seriously. And I had originally gotten into it just because of the digital gold narrative. There's 21 million and there's a limited supply and it's an inflation hedge and stuff like this. But shortly after that, I started learning about Ethereum and the smart contracts and all that kind of stuff. And as a programmer for iOS, I'm like, this is pretty cool. So I had done a few just videos on that and they got popular, which was surprising to me because I had a YouTube that just, had a couple hundred views on stuff. And so that really it got a lot of views, and then people started thinking of me as the Ethereum guy, which is probably a little bit overblown, but it is what it is. And so then let's see, I got into BSV because the transaction fees on Ethereum were just, prohibitive, and they still are. I think they're even worse than they used to be. So yeah, that's sort of the bit of my background. I'm really interested in, because during that 2015 or 2017 era, sorry if you could hear water in the background. I have this little hydroponic thing going. But anyways, during the 2017, 2018 era, when the price went up, I had made, a fair amount of money, and I took some time off just like from doing anything. And I got really bored, which, I was always into the fire, financial freedom, retire early kind of thing. And then when I got that, I was like, wow, I'm like super bored. And then I'm just like, well, if I could do anything, if money was no object, what would I want to do? And I started thinking about our food supply chain and just how it's not that great. We throw away like 30% of the produce. And there's a lot of stuff here in California, even though we have like the food supply in in the United States, there's still a lot of things. Like when we import things across the border, they have to go through all these treatments. And so anyways, I started looking at it and I'm like, I would really love to improve the food supply chain. And so that's when I got interested in BSV. That's how I thought I would use it. And I still plan to do that longer term. But I also have a job now with the BSV Academy. And so it's kind of perfect though, because I'm learning how to use BSV in a deeper way while I still have these long-term goals. And so, yeah, that's sort of my background.
Nice. All right. So Ryan Wold, who's Ryan Wold exactly? I know you're from out in Vacaville, which is not too far from where I'm at, but what else can we know about you?
Yeah, located here in Northern California. Yeah, I've been a software developer for quite a long time, working mostly in the public sector. I started my career in a county auditor's office and then worked at a state college, some nonprofit work and some consulting work around software development. And now I'm back as a federal employee working at the General Services Administration. Unfortunately, my job doesn't really overlap too much with blockchain. So BSV has been a sort of a personal interest of mine since I had the opportunity to consult on a Hyperledger project quite a few years ago. It kind of introduced me to the sort of the concepts around blockchain. But what I really didn't get is how is a private permission ledger any better than sort of a public ledger, specifically around coordinating data between those systems. And so I really got tuned into the notion of a public scalable blockchain, which kind of brought me to BSV. And then ever since I saw some of the early Bitcoin script tools like Run and Xiaohui's sCrypt, I've just been very interested in sort of how to put computation more on chain, and basically tying the data protocol with cryptographic proof, as well as sort of a legal foundation. I think are going to be really promising for the crypto industry, and then ultimately for kind of some of the public sector work that I hope it makes its way into someday.
All right, thank you. So, all right, Kevin, let me, can you take us a little bit back before we go into the hackathon stuff? Can you just help me understand what is the purpose of Bitcoin? I mean, I think you've talked about that before in some of your videos. Like what?
Sure, yeah. So, the understanding of what Bitcoin is for is pretty, misunderstood in the public sphere. But if you reread the white paper, it talks about small casual payments and how they're not possible with the current infrastructure. Because, when you do a credit card transaction or whatever, it's 2% plus 10 cents is the average transaction fee. So the white paper is saying, what if we want to do these small casual payments that are what we call micropayments, or nano payments is another way that people say it. But on the internet, we have to do that without, the credit card transaction fee, because that's too much. So you can't do anything with that fee less than 10 cents. And a lot of people will say, well, why would you want to pay for less than 10 cents? But there's a whole lot of things. Like, let's say you want to do a Google search without ads. Well, what's that worth to you? It's probably about a tenth of a cent or whatever per search. Or maybe you want to do social media where instead of doing likes, you're, giving people a few cents or fractions of a cent. Another way you could explain it would be like routing internet, like all the routers and stuff. What if there was actually you're paying per packet and it routed it based on that? And that sounds like, oh, that doesn't matter because I just pay my monthly thing. But like when I was in Africa and these places where there's really low bandwidth, it doesn't work because it's, it just crashes the network when everybody tries to use it at 5 p.m. And it's just like, okay, there's no internet for anybody. It's kind of like when during COVID started and it had the toilet paper limit, you could only buy one box, and then like it sold out and then nobody could get it, right? That's kind of like the same idea. If you don't allow a free market where there's this, price fluctuations, then it doesn't distribute properly. So there's just a lot of potential with the micropayments. But it was sold as, first of all, as this thing that the government couldn't censor, right? And that's in the early days with the Silk Road and that kind of stuff. That's what Bitcoin became popular for, and that wasn't what it was for. And it has that traceability as part of it. Okay, it's like serial numbers on a dollar bill where people can mark it and then they can see, oh, this is where it went. But it's not as traceable as, like, say, a credit card where they just have your whole, account, all that you're spending. So anyways, all those kinds of things got shut down. The Silk Road got all messed up because of the traceability aspect. So then the narrative kind of switched and it went into this digital gold thing where there's a finite amount, but this brought in like all these institutional investors. And that's also when I got involved, was this digital gold thing. But again, that's really not what Bitcoin is for. It's kind of like the Constitution of the United States. Like, yeah, it's the rules are there and we agree to follow it, but nobody's enforcing that. And with the 21 million Bitcoin, it's the same. Like, yeah, we're agreeing that we're going to keep the code at 21 million, but there's no magical powers that are keeping it at 21 million. So, the real primary point of Bitcoin is to do micropayments. Now, with the small blockers who want to keep it small so they could distribute the blockchain among all these different, small laptops and keep it so the government can't censor it. Well, in doing that, they ruined the micropayment aspect of it, right? Because you could only fit, like 7 transactions per second on that tiny little blocks. And so now the fees, I have to check what they are, but I think they've been up to like $20 per transaction is the average fee. So that's way more expensive than a credit card. It's what's the point of actually using this? There isn't much point to it other than this digital gold narrative, which is sort of a false narrative. Because if the government really wanted to shut it down, they could just close the exchanges and it would be useless because people aren't using it for any, like day-to-day purchases. They're just exchanging dollars for it. So anyways, with Bitcoin as fee, the blocks are allowed to grow in size, and that means that the transaction fees can stay small, and we could actually use it for its original purpose, which is the micropayments. But then there's other aspects to it, like time stamping and data integrity and that kind of stuff that are also possible.
Nice. Okay, so small casual payments you talked about, and its purpose as then migrating to digital gold, and then how that wasn't, it defeated the purpose of the micropayments. It wasn't possible. So, all right. So, well, that's maybe a good point for us to kind of pivot then. Like, with all that knowledge that you have and experience, when you guys went to the hackathon in San Francisco, can you tell me the story? Like, what happened? Were you inspired, or did you already have a plan of how you could put something together? And how did this come about? And then, like, what is this project all about that you guys created?
Yeah, well, we all met at the I knew Archie from the Bitcoin or the philosophy class, but yeah, we all met in San Francisco in person at least, and we were just there to kind of well, I can't speak for them, but I was just there to meet up with everybody, and yeah, we just wanted to work on something, and we honestly we weren't even we were all very surprised to win because we weren't super competitive in terms of having a strong idea. We just wanted to get experience with making something, and so it started off as just a really simple escrow thing where when you go to the gas station and if you pay with cash, then you have like your prepaid amount on the pump, and then when if you don't use it all, you get your money back, or you use it all, and that's fine. So we just started with a very simple idea that let's just do this escrow thing. We started thinking, or at least I was arguing, that we should make it a little bit more complicated and have it so you're actually like, you've heard these ideas in the past where like you pay per second watched a video, and like you're basically streaming money where you pay. And so I thought that might be a little bit better implementation, but we're like, it's too complicated for right now, and we just wanted to do something simple. So we just did the simple escrow thing, and it worked out. And Ryan, I helped a little bit at the beginning of getting us hooked up to the wallet and simple stuff, but then Ryan did most of the user interface, and Archie also helped with that. So yeah, we're super happy to win, and it was a bit of a surprise. But I guess I was talking to David Case at the London Blockchain Conference, and he just said it was practical, easy to use, it looked good, and stuff like that. So I think some of the others were far more technically, sophisticated, like ties, but it was just harder for people to grasp how they'd use it, I think.
All right. So, okay, cool. So Ryan, how can people use this app or this tool?
Yeah, as Kevin mentioned, so Archie had the idea to basically to try to establish real world use, and getting gas is something that I think all of us have done, and we basically really just try to use this as a learning exercise to model what is currently, and which is basically you swipe a credit card, you get pre-charged for it, so you don't just like fill up halfway and drive off, right? Because they're actually out that gas. That's why the pre-charge is even necessary. And so yeah, getting into it, yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Matt hammered out most of the React interface, and in terms of how to use it, typically a gas station would need to implement this on a per pump basis. So how they would do that is still TBD, but we have, a proof of concept. So some part of a device, probably something smaller than a Raspberry Pi, could keep either a private key or a public address where users could send money to it. There would have to be some service that listens to chain for when the payments are there. But users could basically walk up, pay right to a pump, and then when they drive off, press complete to finish out the transaction, and essentially they would have paid via Bitcoin and received their change via Bitcoin. So that was sort of the user experience of it. And we implemented it using a browser, just again as a proof of concept. But in the real world, there would need to be a translation to sort of the hardware in pump experience. But given today's technology, that shouldn't be a huge lift. It just needs some focus, and I think there would be quite a large market for that to integrate there or at the payment screen.
Okay, what would the benefit be for the user or the supplier?
Yeah, so for the gas station, they would immediately receive their money. There would be less. They would be able to pass on savings to the consumer, as well as limit their credit card overhead. And for customers, they would basically just be paying funds immediately, and so their experience would typically be the same. But gas stations that do hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, of revenue each year, at 2 to 3% per swipe, that can add up quite a bit, especially with gasoline charges.
Okay, so kind of like the benefit of paying in cash for right now, in a way, right? So
Yeah,
yeah,
and
which merchants like.
It
yeah,
could
lots
also
of gas stations already give discounts for that. Sorry, go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, for sure, they have the cash discount. But yeah, it could also be used for any sort of escrow, We wanted to build something simple so that we would just understand how an escrow thing would work, and we'd be able to apply that figure in a whole host of different avenues.
How would that work as an escrow?
Well, you're putting the money down, right? So you're saying I have this money, and then if you use it all, then great. If you don't, then you get your change back. So I don't know if you could, think of some example. Maybe it's with paying for some sort of digital asset, or like pay per video content, or I don't know. There's all sorts of different ways you could use escrows.
Okay, so the money goes into an escrow, like in some sort of a contract, like a programmable money in a contract, and stays there for like locks in there, and then would it be triggered out upon part of the contract, or how would that work?
Do you remember how we programmed the actual contract? I wasn't involved in that. I helped us get set up with the wallet, and I think I forget exactly how the contract works, but we could look into it if you don't know, Ryan. Oh, you're on mute.
Thanks. Hey, so we pay into the contract, and then basically, if for example, say we swipe and it pre-charges us for whatever the Bitcoin is, say $200 worth, and then we drive off because we get an emergency phone call. We could basically, the transaction is spendable such we can spend it back to ourselves. Otherwise, they have the option to spend it to pay for the gasoline. So in that sense, that it serves as an escrow. And we explored ways to have like other parties be that, whether it be somebody else in the gas station, maybe it's the gas station, like the head, like the head register there, or it could even be like a third party company if we wanted to. And so we sort of have the schemes that worked with all of those. But the way we ended up doing it was basically just we pay to the address and we could redeem it until the point we get gas. And so in that sense, it holds the funds like an escrow.
All right, that makes sense. So, and that's done through a smart contract?
That's right.
Is that by using sCrypt? Yeah?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep. So yeah, we could spend it from either party can spend that transaction at that point.
Okay, so before we go into like more about the hackathon, can you explain, maybe either one of you guys explain a little bit more about like, okay, in simple, please, in very basic terms, let's say, one person has Ethereum and they want to use your product, your tool, or another tool, and but they want to do it in Bitcoin. They want to save money. I guess the benefit would be lower transaction fees. Uh, how can that be done? I mean, Xiaowei's told me about this tool that he has called the transpiler. And I mean, how is it possible to use Ethereum with Bitcoin?
Well, the thing is that's tricky is because I came from the Ethereum world and I, heard about smart contracts on Bitcoin. And the problem is that they follow an account-based model and we have a UTXO model. So it doesn't really port 100%. There are some things that do port, but um, basically with Bitcoin, imagine like you have this wall of safety security boxes, right? And instead of a key, you have computer code. And if it evaluates to true, then it opens, otherwise it doesn't open. But with every transaction, you're taking money out of the safety security box and then you're putting it in a new one and you're relocking it with a different lock. So you kind of have to keep track of where you're placing these, these new things, and you have to communicate that to the next person. Whereas in Ethereum and that kind of stuff, they just have an account-based model where it's at this static address. And and you could usually, if I remember correctly, you could add funds to that static address, you could take it out. And so for them, it's a much more simple experience, but the account model really slows down the scaling because with every, iteration of the blockchain, you have to update that whole account state. Where with the UTXO, you can sort of have these, it's kind of like parallel processing. There's just all these different UTXOs. So it doesn't really translate 100%. And that's what kind of threw me for a loop. But there are ways where people could build an account-based system on top of a UTXO system. And so if you wanted to build like a, account-based thing, it would be possible, but that hasn't gained much traction. I think there was, Xiaowei gave me a link to some of the first people that did this back in the Unwriter days, but yeah, it's really a different architecture. Okay. And so it allows for, low transaction fees, but it doesn't function exactly the same way.
Okay, so perhaps I'll work on getting some more information about the Owen Bond. He announced a big thing with nChain at the London Blockchain Conference where he gave an example of like Alice has Ethereum, Bob has Bitcoin. She could pay Bob with Ethereum in Bitcoin. So in simple terms, and I really don't know how that works, but
That's
supposedly
interesting. Maybe it is this. Well, I don't know. I should watch it before I speak to it. But yeah, that sounds interesting. I'll give it a watch.
Yeah, it's definitely a new thing people should look into. I don't know if he's put it out yet, but that's a recording that will come out about from Owen Bond. I watched it live. So, all right, Ryan, did you want to add anything to that before we move on?
Just a note about the sCrypt transpiler, right? So like Ethereum devs will write Solidity contracts with a handful of logic and a JavaScript, TypeScript type language. And the transpiler is basically to translate some of that syntax and concepts over to for Bitcoin smart contracts. How much like architecture it does for you, I'm not sure. As Kevin mentioned, like Ethereum has an account-based model, whereas Bitcoin has a UTXO model. So just like those fundamental assumptions related to those two different paradigms that need consideration in terms of like the design of contracts. But the transpiler will translate the Solidity code to sCrypt code, so that makes folks that are already writing Solidity contracts, it makes the friction to come over and play on BSV a little bit easier.
Okay. All right. Sounds, yeah, good explanation of the transpire. So now, so let's talk about the next, what could be done like with another hackathon, or, how this could be improved for next time. I mean, because some ideas that we had, including David Casey, you mentioned, was that we get the community to, like, we get people to, um, you know, basically be a part of the hackathon through some sort of just through multiple ideas, so some way, and creating a prize, or creating a way that a company at the end of it would receive, let's say, an investor. Okay, a company would come and back up the winner, like, as another angle of it. So these are like very ripe, very real, genuine, like, serious people I've already talked to that are interested in coming together on this. So I'm just like throwing the idea out there, entertaining it. Like, what you guys are, involved in this. Like, what do you think that we need to do to make this better, like, to improve it for the next one?
As far as the sCrypt competition itself, the hackathon, I think it was pretty good. I think if we, on that first day, if we actually were programming more, if we were like together working on things, that would be better instead of just lectures, or at least one of the 2 days.
Breakout, like a breakout session. Oh,
Yeah, but like
got it.
actual like we're coding and like 3 hours. What would we come up with at the end of it, kind of stuff.
Totally. That's a brilliant idea. Yes.
Yeah, because there's a lot of things, with the wallet. There were some bugs in the wallet, and we're like, is this our problem? Is it something having to do with the wallet? So if everybody's working on it together, we just resolve it right away instead of like Googling and trying to figure out getting stuck. But yeah, I think it would be nice to have, we have a lot of wallets in Bitcoin SV, but very few of them allow for Bitcoin script. And so the Yours wallet does, Sensilet does, Tall does, but most people will use the, hand cash or CentB or something like that. And those are really strictly just for micropayments. They don't allow for Bitcoin script. So having a better wallet ecosystem, whether it's Yours getting better, or some of these other ones supporting Bitcoin script, that'd be awesome. But yeah, I think having a wallet ecosystem is so crucial for the success of all of Bitcoin. Um, Easy on ramps and off ramps. Hand cash is the best by far, but it's funny when you give it to somebody who's not into Bitcoin at all, they'll look at it and they'll be like, why is, I just opened it. Why did I make money, or why did I lose money? They don't realize that there's like a price fluctuation, They just think, like, imagine you get a wallet and every time you look at your bank account, like money's gone missing or gone up. It's very confusing to most people. But I was actually talking to the hand cash guys at the London blockchain conference, and I think they have a stable coin that's coming out soon. So I think that'll be promising. But yeah, I think better wallets, and it's great that we have the ones that we have. I just think as those evolve, it'll be better for developers.
Ryan, so what can we do to improve? Like, what incentives or breakout sessions is one thing. Great idea. What can be done to improve it for the next one?
Yeah, I think additional time for technical work would be good. For a hackathon, there was very little hacking done sort of in the room. A lot of good conversations, which sort of led to us forming a group. But in terms of making hackathons better, I think about hackathons as part of a product development life cycle. It brings a lot of eyeballs and energy focused on a specific thing, and that's what's really great about a hackathon. But ultimately, when they're done, a lot of that good energy ends up dispersing, and sometimes that's a lost value. So bringing more money or prizes, that gets more eyeballs. People will like say, if number go up for BSV, that would get more eyeballs for sure. If companies are looking for specific things, it's a great way to recruit and assess. And so ultimately, there's a lot of different incentives that go into that. I was sort of reflecting on the hackathon with Xiaowei, and in the Slack channel, he mentioned, he's like, this Slack channel is a forever hackathon, and I really like that framing because the goal is like to keep the conversation going. And ideally, like there's a lot of us that would like to spend a lot more time building and developing, but the reality is we have other obligations and responsibilities, and very few of us are able to work on it anywhere near close to full time right now. And so I think that's a larger issue. A hackathon helps get some energy and eyeballs on it, but ultimately it would be great to see more like some way to bridge these like one-off efforts and sort of longer sustainable approaches. But that's a challenge that every hackathon faces. It's not specific to this one, but I think that this is a really good first step, and I'd like to see more like another hackathon with like another kind of goal. And then maybe some companies, come around and start hiring from the teams and the products that this sort of get demonstrated. So
Now, do you
it might
remember?
take a bit.
That's great. And one thing that you mentioned, which I wrote down was huge, is companies. What are the companies looking for? So if a specific company wants a certain subject, that could be a product, that could be like a target of it right there. And then there could be an incentive. So all right, that's really, really good. Now I forgot what I was going to say. So go ahead, please chime in, Kevin. I blank.
You're saying what
Help me out.
are
Sorry, go ahead. No, I just totally blanked on what I was. Yeah. Well, he was onto a good point there, and I was thinking, wow, what companies want? Like that could be a target as opposed to just thinking of some random idea. What do they want?
Yeah, that's true. I think I think one of Bitcoin's big things is like data integrity and being able to prove that things exist at a certain point in time. But I don't know how much, like companies invest in security and stuff. It seems like it's a cost center that it's like insurance, like you hope you don't have to use it, but
Do you
but
know
yeah.
if tokenized was done in a hackathon? James Belding?
I don't think so, but Ryan might correct me if I'm wrong. No, I don't think so. I think he just
It
built that.
came, but it came from something because he won something. It was some sort of a event that.
Okay, it might have. I remember watching a long time ago, even with sCrypt, it was like a competition. Um, I forget exactly where it was. I saw it on the internet, but is it one of the CoinGeek conferences or something like that? So it
Yeah.
could have come from that, but that was a bit before my time, I think. I don't know for sure.
Well, I'm gonna have to ask James Belding about that and see what exactly happened, because that I heard so much about tokenized at this freaking London blockchain event, man. It was just like tokenized everything. And it was just like, you got to talk to James Belding, man. Some of us, they're doing some big things.
Yeah, it has a really clean interface. It's easy to use. So I think they've done a good job, but I haven't used it too much, so I don't know.
Nice. All right. So what is it that you guys do you have, what are your plans with this and going forward with the product? Do you have you considered it all or thought about it? Do you need to rate? I mean,
Well, we were originally just doing this just to, gain some experience programming. And so we all kind of agreed that let's work together on something in the future. And but yeah, this really wasn't meant to be a big product. It was just something where we could learn.
okay.
I remember Archie saying, look, we're not going to win at the beginning, or like we all agreed, okay, well, we're not going to win. And then we did. So it's like partly embarrassing and partly, like,
Kind
I
of
don't know
embarrassing. We
if
didn't
we're
mean to
happy.
win.
We're happy we won, but we don't know, it wasn't meant to be a big thing. It
All
was
right, so
just,
it's not going to be the next big giant app, Google. Like that's not where you're going with it. So we need to start. So it sounds like if somebody wants to do that, like as a big company, then we can build off this momentum and learn
for
from.
sure. Yeah, I think if I were to build a big company starting with this, there's still like right now you're dependent on the wallets, right? So and those, if they don't work so well, it's kind of a bummer for your company. So I think anybody looking to build a big company needs to either really work together with the wallets to make them better, or maybe start at a more foundational level. Um, but for like a small app or something, you know, I think, yeah, you could just use one of the wallets like Handcash for micropayments, or yours for some small thing. But I think a big company like Google or something, you have to get more involved in infrastructure at this point.
Brian, what do you think? Any ideas on some sort of big adoption of a company, of what could be done if somebody wanted to come into another hackathon?
Yeah, so I mean, from the escrow angle, I think there's a lot of use cases that can sort of bump into escrow, and a lot of them are already, existing, like domain selling, selling of digital assets, selling of real assets. These things are kind of being experimented in other places, but like property deeds make a ton of sense. Property titles, at some point, you wouldn't even need like an escrow company because the title is just there on chain for everybody to see. So there's a lot of different cases that sort of bump into escrow, and um, but we don't have any plans to kind of like pursue that at the moment. Um, I think there's a lot of big opportunities for basic hardware devices, like the notion of IoT. Like that's cool, but the smart agents still need configuration, and or the smart devices still need configuration and to be managed like a fleet. What happens if there's an issue in one of those sensors that's making a payment? How do you troubleshoot that? Right now, they unlock it and take the mechanical hardware device somewhere. If that was a mini computer, executing Bitcoin transactions, that would need more. Ultimately, I think if we were able to continue working on a hackathon, we would do more with the ordinals. That was really sort of the point where we were headed, is to be able to do either like gift cards as ordinals, or like other types of prepayments. I have like friends who went to college and they got gas cards, or sort of allotments for money or gas, and that's a really good use case for an ordinal. But yeah, that's probably it for now. Also, I'd like to better understand like tokenomics and tokens. That was a kind of a theme at the conference that we didn't really get into programming wise, but it was definitely a theme of the conference. And would there be a market for gas tokens? In the current state of things, not so much, but given it's a real commodity, it would be actually interesting to sort of explore that use case at a much larger scale.
Damn, sounds incredible. Kevin, yeah, anything to add?
Yeah, I think, trading in BSV is great, but it fluctuates in price a lot, and having a stable coin would be killer for a lot of, people, whether they want to do games or whatever on the internet. So I think that Handcash is doing that. That'll be a good thing. Yeah, I think like I was saying earlier, what I would do is the next step would be to try and make it work with that, the idea of streaming, like money, where you're paying for a video per second watched. Well, instead of putting down $100 and then maybe getting change if you don't use it all, you could actually pay like per, tenth of a gallon or something. And then I was talking with Todd about this. It's like you update this end sequence thing. And anyways, that's what I would do. But yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, that sounds like a good spot to wrap it up. We're gonna the plan is we talked about doing another hackathon in December. So we're definitely, that seems like the goal right now. Now it's a matter of how can we make it better, like absolutely blow the freaking, absolutely just kill it on this thing and make it something huge. So where can people find you guys?
YouTube.com/Kevin Healy, I think, is the best place to find me.
Nice. Ryan, mute, unmute.
Yeah, yep. RyanWold.net, and I'm on Twitch and Twitter as well. R and W on Twitter.
All right, nice. Okay, guys. Well, thank you, man. This is a great experience. I'm glad to hear. Thanks for all your feedback and the comments on sCrypt, and also the purpose of Bitcoin, Kevin, the benefits of using the app, and like what you really learned from it. And some of the insight you shared about a company potentially doing this. So let's keep this discussion going, man. I really appreciate it with you guys. So any last words before we wrap?
Nothing big. Just thanks for your videos. I watch your channel quite a bit, Gavin. So
Nice.
for doing them.
Well, we'll keep it entertaining. Let's do it, my man. So definitely gonna have a Twitter space coming soon too. So let's do it, man. I'll see you guys at the top. Thank you for
Awesome.
coming.
All right.
Thanks, Gavin.
Thanks.